From the field, generating HTML reports. This is going to be one of the coolest nuggets you will see. We're going to actually learn to create multi-section, beautifully formatted, dynamic HTML reports that you can post to an intranet web server, that you could send as the body or an attachment to an email, multiple sections of information, great for creating inventory reports, server configuration, management reports, that type of thing. We have a fairly extensive nugget ahead of us. We're going to start by talking about PowerShell's native HTML output, and I'll show you where people tend to go wrong when they try to produce multi-section reports. We're going to look a little bit at some HTML standards, and then I'm going to introduce you to the right approach for building these multi-section reports. I'll show you how to create HTML fragments and then combine those fragments together into a consolidated, standards-compliant report. It's not going to be beautiful, so next I'll show you how to apply some styling to make it beautiful and how to add some dynamic elements. Finally, we'll make a controller script, something that takes all these different tool elements and combines them together to create a completely automated process capable of generating server configuration reports for as many servers as your heart desires. To get us started, you're going to have to download the enhanced HTML module that I've written. Now, this is free. If you head up to powershell.org/wp/newsletter, the easiest way to get to this, you're going to scroll down to the Creating HTML Reports in PowerShell. You don't have to sign up for anything. This is going to take us right to the book's GitHub repository. You'll probably find several versions. Just go through to the latest one. We kind of archive the older versions. And you'll find the book. I really do recommend that you read the book. It's a great book. It's not that long, but it explains a lot of the approaches that I'm going to be using. So it's a great reference for you. It's free. Just click it and download it. But for right now, we're just going to go through to the HTML code folder, and I'm going to grab the actual module. You got a couple of ways you can do this. Let's see. Let's open up a copy of the ISE. This is kind of a fun way to do it. We'll just grab everything in here. Oops, not everything on the page. Yes, there's a lot of code. Fortunately, you don't actually have to read all of this. I'm going to show you how to use it. Almost there. Wow, it didn't seem that long when I wrote this thing. 799 lines. Should have hit enter one more time for an even 800. Copy that to the clipboard. I'm going to paste it into a file, and then I'm going to save this. And it needs to go into Windows PowerShell modules. I'm going to make a folder called Enhanced HTML2, and we'll save this as Enhanced HTML2.psm1. There, now we've got a module. Now, there's only two commands in here. Let's see if I can find the first one. It looks like it's parameter block. That looks like it's help. They do have extensive help. Convert to enhanced HTML fragment, and then the top one is convert to enhanced HTML. I'm going to leave this open because there's a few things in here that we can refer to as we're working, but we don't need this web page anymore, so we can close that. I'm also going to open my OS Tools module. Now this has got a couple of things. Get disk details, played with that. Get system details and get disk details are the two I'm going to work with. So the idea here, let's just take a step back. The idea here is to produce an HTML report that includes some attractive formatting, that includes a couple of sections, and that can spit out a unique report for each of many different computers. Now, under the hood, PowerShell's convert to HTML commandlet is neat, but I see people misuse it in a lot of ways. For example, here's something I'll see folks do wrong. Let's say we're going to use our OS Tools module, and I'm going to say get system details from computer dc.lab.pri is fine. And we're going to pipe that to convert to HTML, and obviously we want that in a file, so we'll do that. Then we'll do something like get disk details, also for the same computer, and we'll convert it to HTML, and we'll out it to the file, and we'll just append it to the bottom. Let's look at see what that actually looks like. Not not super attractive, but it's a two-section thing. Now, the convert to HTML command does have some parameters, minus pre-content, minus post-content. If I'd used those, that would have allowed me to put a little a header above each section of this. Now, IE doesn't do a bad job of displaying this, but I want to show you something. What I've actually done here is produced a complete HTML document and then produced a second HTML document and appended it in the same file as the first. Technically, if you read the specification on HTML documents, this isn't legal. You're supposed to have a doc type declaration, just one of them, and you're supposed to only have one HTML section. So everything after that, all this, the second stuff I created, technically no good. In fact, let's copy this whole thing to the clipboard. And I've opened up the World Wide Web Consortium's HTML validator. Let's just paste this in here and see what it says about it. Tell me if this is valid. No. No, it's not valid. And the reason it's not valid, let's get into the error list. It doesn't allow this second doc type declaration down on line 12. It doesn't allow a second HTML element. This is incorrect. Well, the downside of it being incorrect is that some web browsers just won't display it. So to create a multi-section HTML report, you can't just jam multiple HTML pages into a single text file. Now, the convert to HTML commandlet actually does have a built-in solution for this. And it's this second parameter set that uses the minus fragment. So look what happens now. I'm going to run this again. We'll do system details. And I am going to throw in some pre-content just so you can see where that goes. But we're going to generate it as a fragment. And if we just take a quick look at that fragment, you'll see that I'm missing the doc type declaration. I'm also missing the top-level HTML element. This is not a complete web page. So what I could do, let's see here. Instead of saving this to a file, I'm going to just grab the resulting HTML and put it in a variable. Now, that's going to actually convert to HTML produces a string array. I want to collapse that whole thing to a single string, so we're just going to pipe it to outstring. So now let's grab a second fragment for our disk details. Convert to HTML, pre-content. Make that a fragment as well, and we'll out it to a string. So now I've got that and that in, didn't get any disk details back. I wonder why. Let's just try running get disk details, computer name dc.lab.pri. Oh, I see why. When I ran this command, I didn't use pre-content, I used property. So it was only going to contain the information for the property called h1 disks. That's obviously not one of the properties produced by the command, so it didn't work. Always good to check your work as you go. There we go. Now we've got some information. So I've got these two fragments. Here's how I can put them together into a single consolidated web page. I'll run convert to HTML all by itself and say for the body, I want you to use frag1 and frag2. And let's put some pre-content ahead of that. HR is a horizontal rule, so a little line there, just to look attractive. We'll put a title on here, and we will out that to a file. So what I'm doing is creating a fragment for each section of my report, one for the system details, which I stored in frag1, one for the disk details, which I stored in frag2. then I'm not piping anything to convert to HTML here. I'm running the command by itself, telling it I want the body to contain these two hunks of string, which are two different tables. Add some pre-content, give it a title, and let's see what it looks like. I can type. There we go. So now, see, this is where you start to run into problems. Here's my content. There's the body of it, but my pre-content got put below that. That's not where I wanted it. I kind of wanted it up there. You can fix that. It's just a matter of where things are spaced out. But before we go any further down the path with this, I want to also call our attention to the fact that this isn't the prettiest formatting in the world. And this is where I want to start fixing things. So let's take a look at the two new commands I've given you. Help convert to enhanced HTML. Now this is giving, actually let's do HTML fragment as the first one. So this is giving me some different things. For example, you'll notice that I can specify a different even and odd row CSS class. Well, CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. And it's basically a set of instructions. You'll hear some noise. I'm just grabbing some paper to write on. It's basically a set of instructions that tells the browser how to format, how to make beautiful some bit of my web page. So in CSS, you can define different classes. So we're going to define a class for an even numbered table row and an odd numbered table row. That way we can have the even ones have maybe a lighter background than the odd ones. This enhanced HTML fragment, just like the fragment produced by the built-in convert to HTML. This is going to produce a table of information, and so we can give that a CSS ID. So that's an ID that will uniquely identify this particular table for the purposes of formatting it. And so that's here. We can also give it a unique, so we're going to, this fragment is going to be surrounded with an HTML div or division tag, and that can have a unique ID. So let me show you what this looks like a little bit. We'll just play with this right at the command line. We'll use our get system details, computer name dc.lab.pri. Let's pipe that to convert to enhanced HTML fragment, even row CSS class. Let's make be you know what? Let's not do this one. We'll use a slightly different one. This will be neat. We can do this two ways. We'll give it a table CSS ID. We'll call it sys table. Div CSS ID we'll call sys div. I want you to see where all these come into. The div CSS class, we can name pretty much anything we want to. This is just what popped in my head. The table CSS class, table whatever. Just so you can see where this all comes out. I want to format this one as a list though, not as a table. And we'll include all the properties. And we'll have some pre-content. So that'll go in front of it. And let's do some post-content as well. Just so we can see where everything comes together. Using double quotes, so I get to use that sub-expression in there. Neat trick. So it spewed all this. Now, the first thing we see is my system details. So that's in an HTML H2 tag. And then the entire rest of this is surrounded by a division. There's the opening div tag and the closing div tag. The class here is whatever. Now, classes can be used to apply styling to multiple different elements. So if my report is going to contain multiple sections, then by using this class whatever, I can apply the same styling, the same formatting to every single div that has that class. So it's kind of a way of bulk applying formatting. I also have the ability to refer to this one individually, sysdiv, because it has a unique ID. The IDs are meant to be unique. Inside the div is a table, so there's the opening table tag and the closing table tag. It has a class of table whatever and an ID of systable. Notice maybe there's a little bug right there. Don't have a space in between those. Not sure if that'll cause a problem or not. And then the rest of it is all table rows. Well, let's do this again. Let's out this to a file. so we can see what it looks like right off the bat. So IE is actually willing to display this even though it's not a complete well-formed HTML document, because that's IE. And we can see that I do get my little heading here, and everything is displayed in a list form. So rather than being displayed with rows and columns, a list seemed appropriate because I've only got one piece of information to display. A table with columns would take up more room horizontally, and it would only be one row of data. So why not just display it like this? Okay, so now that we've kind of gotten that working, let's grab that to the clipboard. And I'm going to put it into a new script. And I'm going to need to edit this because grabbing it out of the console kind of puts all the carriage returns in the wrong places. So let's see, we can do a pipe there. Here's our next command. And we'll just we'll do the ugly thing. I'll use these backticks to break each parameter down to its own line. It's a little bit easier to see these commands when they're kind of broken down that way. And each parameter gets its own line. So that's one command. Now let's close that. Let's reproduce this for our disk details. Yes. Oh, and I forgot to out that to a string. Yeah. So we'll do that down here as well. And the out string, all that's doing is taking the output of the convert to HTML fragment, which is an array of strings, and it's collapsing it down to a single string. I am going to get rid of this post content because I want to put that as a footer of the entire report, not in each section. This one I want to be as a table, not as a list. Oh, look there. I missed a property or parameter. This is going to be the disk table. And you don't have to put these IDs and classes in uppercase. I usually don't. I'm not sure why I did this time. So we've got a CSS class, we've got a table CSS class. This is going to be a table, all properties. Ooh, we can put a space in there. And this will be called disk. Yeah, that's good. Let's save this. System report.ps1. So we've got our two fragments, and it's important that they be in separate variables, huh? Yes. All right. Now we're ready to combine those into a consolidated report. Now, I also noticed that I need this to be disk details, and because this is going to be a table, yeah, why don't we add even row CSS class, even odd row CSS class, odd. There. So to combine these, I don't need to put this, we're going to write this right out to a file. Convert to enhanced HTML, and we start off with the HTML fragments that we want to include. Frag1 and Frag2. Frage2. Next off, we can include a title. System report for dc.lab.pri. We can include some pre-content that'll appear in front of the report. Oops, need to put a backtick if we're going to do this one per line trick. Pre-content. I'll do this the same thing. The title shows up in the browser title bar or the browser tab. This is actually going to show up on the page, and we can style it with some HTML. You'll notice I'm giving the overall report an H1 header, and then the individual sections are getting H2, so the font should be slightly smaller. Some post content. This is where I'll put the date. And the last thing we can do is provide a CSS style sheet. Now I'm going to just use this variable CSS. We haven't defined that yet, but we're going to go define it right now. So you can see what CSS actually looks like. Let's see here. $CSS equals, and we're going to use something called a here string. It's an @ sign and a double quote, and then to close it on a line by itself at the beginning of the line, double quote @. Anything in here is just going to be taken as a string. So let's start by defining what we want the HTML body to look like. Let's do font family Tahoma, font size 10 point, background color white, and we'll set the color to a really dark gray. So that'll be the default text color. Now, table headers, if you come back to the shell here and you look at our HTML that we played with, where'd it go? You'll see that in the table, once I start the table here, I start off with, well, see, this is not a good one. Let's do the disk details, or just convert this thing as a table. I want you to see that, I want you to see the difference in the HTML here. Here's where I create the table. So here's the table header. Table row, TH means table header. So I can style that TH tag so that the table headers get a slightly different font treatment. For example, TH font weight bold, color white, background color black. Now I had said when I created this table that I was going to use the even row CSS class and odd row CSS class. So let's define classes for those. Classes are preceded by a period. Even, background color, let's do a very light gray, and odd, background color, let's do a very medium-ish gray. A little bit of trial and error. We'll see what this looks like at the end of the day. Okay. I ultimately do want all this in a file, and right now I'm just producing the HTML. So we're going to put a pipe here at the end. Out file c report.html, and we'll just overwrite whatever's there. Okay, let's run this and open it up in Internet Explorer. Now, there is some JavaScript that potentially happens. So you'll see here, because this is loading off of my local drive, this thing defaults to pulling the JavaScript content from Microsoft's Content Delivery Network. And so because they're coming from different sources, it's blocked content. Let's just go ahead and allow it. We're not using the JavaScript yet, but we sure will before we're done with this nugget. And we'll let that load. You can see, though, that the page started to look pretty decent. Here's my post content. Now, one thing I'm not happy with right away is how that's kind of jammed up against the rest of it. So this is where we can immediately start to go back and make some changes. My post content here, let's put in a couple of line break tags. Maybe a horizontal rule just to separate that off a bit. Let's see what else we think. System report, that's good. System details, that's nice. Disks, this is nice. You can see I've got this nice, attractive formatting happening here for the table. I'm actually pretty good with most of this. Let's add a third section. Frag 3 is going to be, let's just do get process. That should produce a nice large table. And we'll convert that out. We'll name it proc table. We're not really using these identifiers, you'll notice, but it's nice to have them there just in case. This will be called processes. And we'll include that in the list of fragments. So now that we kind of have this structure in place, adding a new section should be pretty easy. Let's run this again. And go refresh our page over here. And look at that. All our table process information. Gosh, that's a long table. Wow, and some of these rows are huge because they've got all that information. You know what? Let's dumb that down a bit. And instead of including everything, let's just do the process name, the ID, VM, PM, WS, and CPU. Run it again. This is the neat thing is you can kind of go back and forth with this and run it over and over and until you achieve happiness. Yeah, that table looks better. Still really long though. Let's do this. You know, maybe not everybody wants to see the HTML every time. So let's add another parameter in here to our fragment. Make hidden section. We'll run this again. Look what it does. If I click on the processes, isn't that cool? Now we've got a downside is that there's no real visual indication that that's going to happen. So let's take a look at the HTML because I want to show you how this kind of works. Let's get down to that processes section. Here it is, processes. And this is in a, let's see, how can we refer to this using, oh, I know. Let's put some styling on this H2. Now that's going to affect all of the H2s. I don't want to do that necessarily. So we've got a span here. Yeah, actually I do. Here's what I think I want to do. I want to make them all hidden sections. So I'm going to go add that to every one of these. Make hidden section. I kind of think that functionality is neat. And then up in the H2, or up in the CSS, I'm going to style all the H2s so that when you look at them, your cursor turns to a pointer, and we'll do an H2 hover. This is a neat trick. And we'll turn the color blue. See if that works. Refresh. Now they're all hidden, but they see now it's more like, oh, I'm supposed to click on that. And then zoop, zoop. Now this is all static. This is something you could attach to an email or even make the body of an email and send it off to someone. And it would display and work in their web browser or their internet email client exactly like it's working right here. Now there's another thing I can do with this process table because it is still, even when it's displayed, it's pretty long. Let's try one more trick with just that one. This is the last neat thing this does. Make table dynamic. Run this again. And refresh the page. So there's system details. There's disks. Oh, look at that. The tables are dynamic. The tables have been made dynamic. Oh, did I put that on my disk table? Oh, I did. Oh, well, that was dumb. That's not what I wanted. I wanted that on my process table. There we go. Make table dynamic. Run it again. Reproduce the page. Reload the browser. Yes, he shows all my disks, but now my processes are only showing 10 entries by default. I can change that to 25. I can change it to 10. I can page back and forth. So you've got these previous and next buttons. Now again, those aren't really, it's not obvious I should be poking those. So let's do this. Let's view the page source again. Let's see what those look like and see what style we can maybe add to them. Oh, right, because the page source doesn't actually reflect. We'd have to install the developer tools. Here we go. This is going to show the dynamically modified page. So we should be able to go right near the bottom, get into our last table, and its div. And let's see, we've got buttons here. See all this stuff, these divs and everything, those were added dynamically. So I'm just looking for one that has text for next and finish. That's an anchor. Oh, there's my previous, and there's my next button. So that's the text for these two A tags. So let's see. They've got classes and they've got IDs. So let's write this down. Paginate. Let's see here. Now see, because I'm showing this to you, you'll never have to figure it out. But it looks like we get a class that starts with the word paginate and then has disabled if the button is disabled. And you can see that in this view right here, I'm at the beginning of my table, so previous is not probably, yeah, it's not clickable. I'd like that displayed a little differently. And then if it's enabled, like next, it says enabled, and then it says next or previous. So I think I know what to do to our CSS to make those a little bit prettier. Let's do this right here. So class paginate disabled previous, and I'm also going to do paginate disabled next, because I imagine there is such a thing when the next button is supposed to be disabled. I'm going to put some padding around that, and we're going to color it in a very, very light gray. Now next would be paginate enabled previous and paginate enabled next. And I want the same little padding around them. That should separate them a bit. And we'll color them, let's go with blue. And we'll turn the cursor to a pointer, so they look more like clickable buttons. And see, now that I've shown you that, all you have to do is add something like this to your own CSS, and you'll be able to play with the styling, and you won't have to go figure that out like I just did. Let's refresh this. Look at our processes table. See, now next is highlighted in blue, and it goes pointery. Previous, which is disabled, no pointer, and gray. And when I get to the end of the list, now the next button is disabled. And all that is styling. So I can do a little live searching in here. Right? And as I type, it automatically filters it down. So just a lot of really cool capabilities that you can put in here. Now again, because this is just a file on disk, it's right there. Send mail message. Body. Get content. Report.html. Body is HTML. To, oops, didn't mean to hit enter. To whoever, from whatever, fill in the rest of your parameters. And you just sent that report as the body of an email. All right. Right now, this is all hard-coded for one thing. This system report, we are going to now make this useful. I'm going to put commandlet binding at the top of this. I'm going to put param. And I'm going to say parameter mandatory is true. Value from pipeline is true. Value from pipeline by property name equals true. Oh, this is going to be so cool. One or more strings, computer name, parameter, mandatory equals true, string, output path, begin. And in my begin block, I'm going to define my CSS. All right, so that's the end of my begin block there. Oop. Yeah, you got to be careful. See how I just indented that whole block? Here, strings have to be closed on the first column. So you can't have that last closing quotation indented like that. And then we're going to have a process block. And all the rest of this code, all through here, is going to be in my process block. And then I'll have an end block that I don't think I'll do anything with. Now, this isn't a function. I'm just saving this off as a script. So the first thing I want to do in this begin block is check this output path. If, let's see, if output path, if test path, output path, so I'm testing to see if that already exists. Else, I'm not sure if I need to do anything in particular if it already exists. I might need to come back and do something with that later, but if it doesn't exist, I need to make the directory. So make dir output path. And then we'll define our CSS. So now in the process block, I'm going to go through my computer names for each computer in the computer name variable. And that means all the rest of this is going to have to get indented one more time, because now it's in a for each construct. So there's the end of that. Do myself a favor and start keeping track of these. And instead of using this hard-coded computer name, I'm just going to use $computer. Do it right here as well. Do it right here as well. And then in the top level report, I'll also put the computer name there. Now I do need to save this to a path, but before I do that, let's see. Path equals join path. And the first part is going to be wherever my output path is supposed to be. And then I want to add the computer name .html. So the idea is when you run this, you give it the path of a folder, and then it'll create a separate HTML file for each computer that you want to manage. I'm going to save this, and we're going to run it once just as a quick test. And what did we call that? System report. System report, computer name, dc.lab.pri, output path, C reports. So it created the directory. You know, I'm not crazy about that showing up, so let's go up to that make directory command and pipe that to out null. I don't want to see that again. Don't ever show me that. Let's go into there, reports, and we got nothing, so that means it didn't work, and this is where we start debugging. This is why this is such a great exercise to do. I've already got commandlet binding in there, so debugging will work already. Let's see. It did create the path, so we know all that's working. What we need to do is figure out, write verbose, writing report for computer to path. Oh, you know what? I just realized I don't need to do that. It's because I hard-coded right here. I never changed this over to be my variable. Still, it's nice to have that verbose output in there. We'll leave it there. Let's run this again. This time, we'll add verbose. Now, see, that looks right. And now that I've actually put the variable in there, there it is. So, let's do this. Let's get a clear screen. Start over here. Get AD computer. Now, I just want my servers. Do I just want my servers? Yeah, I think I just want my servers. Get AD computer minus filter. Operating system like server. Let's see what that does. Ha. Select property. We're going to create a new property called computer name. Pipe it to system report. Give it an output path of C reports. Drum roll, please. Fingers crossed, please. So I'm getting the computers that are servers. I'm creating a computer name property for them because that's what my script needs as input is computer name. Populating it with their name. Oh, and you know what? I probably should have not grabbed name. I probably should have grabbed DNS host name. Yeah, I'm guessing this is going to take a long time now because it's going to have to try and resolve those through a couple of different DNSs I have set up. It's going to try and resolve them as public internet names. Yeah, I don't really want to do all that. Don't want to wait. Let's just open up a new shell. Start over. Get AD computer. Believe it or not, this is probably faster. Operating system like star server star, right? Select name equals computer name, expression equals DNS host name. Yeah. Pipe that to system details, system report, output path, C reports. I bet that'll run a little quicker. We'll see. We'll let the two race. Oh no, the other one did close. Good. We'll let this one finish up. All right, bunch of spew RPC errors. So one of my servers doesn't have the ports open for WMI. I should probably have switched this over to use SIM instead, but I do get my report there. Let's have a look at it. C reports dc.lab.pri.html, and there it is. So I gotta allow that blocked content so the JavaScripts that make all the dynamicness happen can load. But this is pretty cool. And what we've written here, just to flip back to the ISE real quick, look at that, disk details, everything. What we've written here is something I call a controller script. This is a single purpose script. It's not designed to be reusable. What it does though is it reuses tools, system details, disk details, that have been written elsewhere. And by having those tools in my OS Tools module output objects in the way that they do, I can consume those objects in a number of different ways, including, in this case, converting them to enhanced HTML fragments and then combining those fragments together into a report. So two types of scripts in the world: tool scripts, which you typically write as modules, and those should output objects to the pipeline because you don't know where those objects are going to be used elsewhere. And then a controller script like this one, which takes all those different tools and sort of glues them together to create some useful process or to automate some business process. So I think this is a really great example. We didn't have to do a ton of coding. There was a lot of copying and pasting, and we added some structure to make this thing kind of a real thing. Give it some parameters, make sure someone can run it. We really should go in next and add some error handling, go in next and add some comment-based help to it so that somebody can read how this thing is supposed to work. But if someone can give it a computer name and a path, they can generate HTML reports for all of those computers now. And we just had to learn a little bit about cascading style sheets. The examples I've given you here should definitely be ones that you can use to get started and then branch off on your own to further explore this entire concept. So now you're familiar with some of PowerShell's native HTML output capabilities, and you know where people tend to get it wrong, trying to append multiple complete HTML documents into a single file. With the enhanced HTML tool module that I provided you, you can create enhanced HTML fragments which are then combined into an enhanced HTML report. You can apply styles, and you can even have it add some dynamic elements. We also created a controller script that automates the entire thing. Now anybody who can provide a list of computer names can run that to generate a set of multi-section server configuration reports. And you can expand on these concepts to produce any type of HTML-based reports that you might need. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.